Hi, folks. This is Louis Hertham, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Shat on TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big D.
Welcome back to the Westworld podcast, brought to you by Shat on TV. This is Gene Lyons. I'm taking over the introduction duties for Roger Roper, who could not be with us. He is traveling back from Columbus, where he helped cheer thousands of Americans as they supported the U.S. national team's loss to Mexico. So way to go, Roger. Really glad to see you're putting your magic touch on soccer as well as podcasting. Also with me is my good friend, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And we are here for the Instacast. This is our quick recap right after the airing of the latest episode of Westworld. This one was episode 7, Tromp L'oeil. Listen, I took French in high school and college, and clearly Arizona State University is a fine educational institution because I have no idea how to pronounce that. Let's call it the Tromp L'oeil. It's an art technique that uses realistic imagery to create the optical illusion that the depicted objects exist in 3 dimensions. So that's the episode we just watched. This will be our quick recap. We'll do another hour-long one that'll be released Tuesday, and then read the fan mail for Thursday's episodes, the Westworld Telegraph. For that one, if you'd like to write in, we are hosts at shatontv.com. So if you have any reaction to this one or the next episode that we're going to be releasing on Tuesday, be sure to write in. Let us know what you think. We love getting those. Love when you do our homework for us. Love when you get me to be completely wrong on a theory and embarrass the hell out of me. So moving right along into the meat of this one, and it is a big one. People from Jimmy Simpson to Louis Hertham, to all sorts of actors that were involved. Evan Rachel Wood all said this is the episode to watch. This is a big one. It's a game changer, and I don't think it disappointed. What do you think, Dick?
No, I think it was fantastic. It's what we needed. We were getting too far down the path of Lost with mystery after mystery and building on myths and not having actually any facts about what was going on. I think this one blew up the storyline. We now have things that we assume we can really depend on, as long as the narrator's reliable. But the theory should be cut in half, and there's tons here that they gave answers, and I was real happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was glad to see some solid bedrock to build on. A lot of times we have theories that we could go one way or another, and I was afraid that we were going to go all 10 episodes with unanswered questions. Like maybe this whole first season was just going to be the setup for season 2, and I think this kind of quashed all that, in addition to being insanely entertaining as an episode. Normally I sit there and, I take meticulous notes on everything that's going on in the episode. And this time I was attempting to live tweet and take meticulous notes during the episode, which was very, difficult to do. But there were some points where I caught myself and I put, I put the laptop aside and I just looked at what was going on the screen. From gunfights to horse riding to, just dialogue. Everything was so beautifully shot. And I think this speaks again to what you pointed out in the last Telegraph, was basically, it seems like a change in the way things are being shot.
Oh, without a doubt. You can feel it. A lot of times the way I can gauge TV is, do I feel the hour? Can I tell how much time has passed? Do I find myself looking at the clock? This was an hour and whatever of completely engaging, entertaining TV. It was what I needed for a Sunday before you go back to work. Minor, small problems, but overall I thought it was beautiful. And I think whatever change they made in episode 5 or 6, when they took a little hiatus, it's definitely paid off because the show is picked up, and I mean it's rolling downhill now.
So let's go with some of the things that we figured out, and I really want to take this one in reverse. Again, if you did not watch this episode, stop right now, because this one is big. And
yes, close your browser, turn off Twitter, turn off Facebook, because there's no way you're keeping this quiet until tomorrow.
I made a few friends at the Inbound 16 conference in Boston this last week, and they were like, "Oh, I really want to listen to your podcast, but I don't listen to Westworld. But I could probably just jump in, right?" No, don't. If you met me there, do not. Just stop. We're not joking. So, in any event, here's the big one. You caught it. I caught it. When I posted it on Twitter, there were still people going like, please, no spoilers. And I was like, no, this is a guess, but it's a pretty well-educated guess. And that is that some people were shocked that Bernard was a host. Okay. Some people were shocked that Bernard killed Teresa. But here's the big one. Ford is replacing humans with hosts.
Yeah, and I think Roger had mentioned this, when we first even did maybe our intro cast all the way back, that this was a storyline that was used in the sequel, the follow-up to the original Westworld movie, which was Future World, where the plot revolved around the park getting the wealthy guests to come in and then replacing them with hosts and putting them back out into the world. So he had predicted that, and I think this just throws everything into question. There's people that we are assuming are humans that we are fairly confident. Now anyone could be a host. Any employee, any guest, anyone from the board, it's up in the air. It could be absolutely any. It's like the invasion of the body snatchers.
And I thought the big reveal was when the tech was working with Clem, and they're like, oh, well, this is a host that's geared up as a tech right now. And I thought, whoa, like big reveal for this episode. That's the big shocker, is that techs can be hosts. And so maybe some of these, techs that are working with hosts are hosts themselves. Wow, that's like, and I was satisfied with that morsel of like a discovery. Like I thought that was going to be it.
Yeah, the fact that they put it right out there. If I'm an employee there, that would have to raise red flags to me and question, am I human? You'd have to. You'd have to question it. And you just shake it off and be like, no, there's no way. But yeah, that they actually do this out in the open, I wouldn't be surprised if a majority of over the years, Ford, in order to maintain control, has been slowly working people out of the system.
Absolutely. That was the first thought I had too, is this man consolidates power. He is a god inside that, inside Westworld. And what's interesting about it is he says, he has that line where he says that the hosts are free under his control, which is about as, that fatalistic viewpoint is about as godlike as it gets. Now, you, Dick, you think that this goes as far as they could be taking guests and releasing guests back into the world as hosts. I kind of limited it as like, when these references to the blood sacrifices, that this was just limited to humans that were involved with Delos, and that he was basically trying to plant his people in Delos. But you think it goes much further?
Oh, it could be anyone. Yeah, it could go much further. We see that right now Delos is possibly on the verge of having a hostile takeover. If he knows that the board, or for example, Logan and Williams, the family business, is in the park to actually do some research for possibly buying them out, that's as equal a threat to Ford's power as Teresa. So it would be logical that if you have a corporate executive in there to research the park, and he could possibly be taking over the park, you would swap him out. Now you have a friendly voice inside the corporation. So I don't think anything is out of bounds right now to question what Ford would do to protect. But here's the question I want to ask. We're assuming now, we've seen him order Bernard to kill someone. They're painting him in such a villainous light. He also, in the episode, speaks highly about protecting the hosts, that the hosts are pure, that people are the bad and the evil force in the world. Could he possibly be doing all of this, not for so much power, but to protect his creations?
I mean, it could be both. Most autocratic dictators believe that they're protecting their nation, right? That they're doing something right. It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Nightbreed, like where there's Midian and there's these monsters and they kill, but they're killing to preserve this one place where they can live. It's their kingdom, and they have to do what they have to do. It's just a question of survival. I love that Ford, much like Maeve, he picks and chooses when he's going to attack. He's very, very careful. So if you notice, when they're kind of hilariously now in hindsight firing Bernard, fucking good luck, right? Like you can't, it's like firing Milton from Office Space. Like
I thought, what a dick. I was like, Ford is just going to sit there and let him take the bullet. I was like, what a dick.
Yeah, so he just has him guide him right in there, and just a brilliant play on his part, which makes you think he's kind of one step ahead. But also they point out that Hale, the corporate visitor, she points out that they can't just remove him. It's like it's like removing a an organ, right? Like he leaves, he can take the whole park with him. It's that simple. And she says even a snap of his fingers.
Ford has done a great job of protecting himself. And Bernard says it. Now, whether or not it's a lie just to further protect Ford, that they don't know how the hosts work. So that is either the truth or that is a Ford-planted lie to the corporate boards to protect from just pulling Ford out. If Bernard knew everything, if he's second in command and he can give you the code and he can give you all the intellectual property, you could just come right in and cut the head off. But if you let them believe that you don't know how they work and you only have 40% of the original creator's work, that could have kept him in the park for all this time.
What's interesting is we see Ford winning all over the place on this episode, right? He wins that battle with Teresa. He's showing his ability to, control Bernard at this point. And one of the biggest wins that I saw, though, was the way that he got his wish with William. And it was beautiful to see how that actually works. That idea of, it sounded like a pipe dream that Westworld is the place that doesn't appeal to your base instinct, but rather, in fact, you find the true you, right? That you're finding what's at your core. And William almost verbatim says exactly what Ford's dream is when right before he makes love to Dolores. He's talking about how he's done pretending. The irony being that he's in a place where you are sheerly pretending, but that he's been pretending his whole life, and now he's finding that true self. And also, I think it's wonderful that we see the case for a true white hat that isn't some cheese ball, tourist in a purple jacket shooting Hector through the neck. But this is what a real hero looks like, and this is what a real hero feels.
Yeah, and it was nice to see that this is the first romantic moment that we've seen. Well, before, it's always been just brothel sex. It's been very male-dominated, aggressive. This was the first time it was romantic and beautiful, which I thought was a nice change. But do we now believe, since we've seen that Dolores believed what we thought was an awakening, was being guided by Bernard, we now know that Bernard is nothing more than a puppet of Dr. Ford. Does that lead you to believe that the entire Dolores awakening is, as we suspected, a long play con of a narrative to get William further into the park and enjoy it like as he is now?
I have no doubt. When you brought that theory up, I agreed with it. I agree with it even more strongly now. Whether Bernard has any vestige of Arnold in him, whether Arnold's another person, a real person, any of that is irrelevant because we know that Bernard is being controlled by Ford, that there's that connection there. And what better way to get what you want from Dolores than to set up the idea that she is rebelling? But yeah, the way that William is played on this, and that's the real tragedy of it, right? Is that he is being fashioned as a hero and he feels heroic, and this is the realest thing he's ever felt, and it's all a lie.
Yeah, that he says he can finally stop acting. That he was able to, in that one small adventure, to live his fantasy was to see Logan and let him show truly what he felt about him and to finally feel life. It was beautiful. Right? That's worth the $40,000.
When Logan is left behind in Pariah by William, I swear I saw him smile at the end there. What do you think that this was set up by Logan, or do you think that he's just smiling because he got to see William kind of like do something dark for a second?
It could be a little of both. It could be that he finally surprised him and showed that he wasn't the meek, patsy that he believed him to be. Or it could be, you took the bait, you're now going on your solo mission with Dolores, and it's going to lead you to some realization.
I think we also have seen that Logan also really likes getting hit in the face. So from the brothel scene, he might just be turned on at this point.
Yeah, seriously. The way I love Dr. Ford controlling, you'd mentioned before that you thought he was very subtle and picked his points. We now see that he is playing God in the park in very subtle ways. He could have easily just commanded Bernard to go somewhere and do a specific action, but he plants that seed, almost like Inception, where he gives him the idea of the woodcutter and going downstairs to track it. So everything in place is to keep the illusion that they are real. And I love how subtle he's playing God. He could do it heavy-handed, but again, that wouldn't work. Over time, if you start seeing people doing things that don't match their personalities or that would make them question, why am I doing this? So I think he is a true artist. He's fantastic at it.
And playing on that, you mentioned before that he may not be this evil person. In fact, he might just be trying to protect Westworld. He did give Teresa plenty of warning. The whole lunch scene.
There was nothing subtle.
Yeah, there was nothing
don't
subtle.
Get in my way.
And she continued, and then, and that's the thing is she's still continuing to make threats. I mean, at that point, I'm in the cottage and I see that he can create life, and you got to know that he's not, some people are like, well, maybe he's just making hosts for in the park. Don't you think anyone would notice that there are these hosts that were never on record that just started popping up?
Teresa, she should have ran when Bernard tells her, this area has never been in the survey because the hosts are not programmed to see things that they shouldn't see. Right away, then, she says, what's this door? When Bernard goes, what door? And he can't see it. If I'm Teresa, I'm running. That's the first tip that he's a host. He can't see the door that is in plain sight right in front of Teresa.
Yeah, her hubris is a little irritating. And I think also with regards to that, and we'll get into this on the full pod because I'm sure that Roger will have some disagreements with me here, and perhaps you will too. But
is it wrong to have been happy to see her get her final end at Bernard's hand?
No, not at all. I was I felt really relieved. In fact, let's talk about that for a second. The sympathy that we feel towards certain characters, not toward others. People were freaking out when Clem was being beaten up by the other host that was that was a tech. But then she turns around and bashes the guy's head against the window until he dies, and people are cool with that. Now, granted, he threw the first punch, but the point is that we are already being conditioned now to only feel sympathy toward the host whose backstories we've seen. You don't know what that guy's story was. Maybe his backstory is he's got a wife and kids, and he's a military veteran, and he's just a really swell guy, and he goes home and he wants to kiss his, and he's being told that he's got to do this thing, and he thinks, well, this is a host. It's just a machine. They'll fix it up. And then she murders him, but no one cares about that guy. They're both hosts. They're both just doing their jobs. Why do we...
I think we're conditioned. It's a male-female. Anytime you see violence against women, I think it's ingrained in us. Anyone who is a real man and who was raised by any kind of strong women, I think it's shocking whenever you see a man who's substantially larger lay his hands on a woman. I think that's it. But it's also helped along by the fact that we know Clem. We care for Clem. We've heard about Clem, wanting to get out of the brothel and wanting to go help her family who's stuck in the desert and the soil won't turn. So we feel pity for her, and we know nothing about this nameless tech. So I think it's a combination of that, but they definitely pull on your heartstrings, and you feel for it. You almost want to jump in there. And you can feel then what Maeve is feeling as she walks by and she knows I can't do anything, that she has to just watch her friend be decommissioned.
One of the things I really love about Maeve is as she is growing in power, she does, like you said, pick when she's going to show that power. In the saloon, when the techs come to grab Clementine and she thinks they're coming for her, she smartly freezes, right? She does exactly what she's supposed to do. She takes the mannequin challenge, and she freezes up, and then waits her turn, and then comes back, gets killed, comes back with Sylvester and Felix and works through that angle. She is bold in the sense that she's commanding Felix to take her around. And then I feel she gets a little too bold. But what's interesting is that as she's getting stronger, you can see that this strength isn't just her doing it for herself. She cares about the other hosts around her, and this isn't a rebellion. This is a revolution that she wants.
Yeah, she can tell that they're not much different than the employees, and she says it multiple times. If I can, this is our Instacast, so we kind of go all over the place. I came up last week with a crazy theory about Dolores's, her ability to draw and paint. They again demonstrate it in this train car scene where she sketches beautifully on a canvas the valley and river that they're going to see later on. These drawings look very much like the drawings in Arnold's sketchbook. Are they subtly, again, drawing parallels?
I agree. If you look at the line work, the way it's all done, it can't be, again, we've said this before. The Man in Black said it himself. Nothing in this, in Westworld is coincidental. Nothing doesn't make sense. Everything adds up to something else. And I think that's a very astute observation. But it does beg the question, how has she seen this before?
Oh, it's because it's part of the narrative. just like she knew the train was going to leave. She's already foreseen. It's like a road map. Okay, take him to the town, get him on the train, get him to the ravine, now get him here. She's seen each of these steps in her head, and it's how you subtly guide the narrative. You don't feed her the exact steps. Go here, go here, go here. You give her big picture so she can kind of follow the narrative subconsciously. And that's how she's seen that, because it was her goal to get William there, to then cross the river to the area where, people never come back.
With regards to that, I want to be very professional here on this podcast. And, there's something we need to address. And that is that we were abso-fucking-lutely right about the nitroglycerin.
Yeah, they were not calling in pyrotechnics for something that could blow up that close to, 3 or 4. Well, we don't know who in there. There could have been other humans. But the park is no way going to allow pyrotechnics to blow up a horse, to blow up a couple hosts. That was real nitro.
Did you think that the explosion was going to be bigger? I expected like a much bigger explosion.
Well, again, I was military, so I worked with C4 and a lot of explosives. And usually what they get wrong is whenever they do C4 and you see like a fireball. C4 is such a fast-moving explosive that there's almost generally very small, visual explosion. It is all shock. So nitro, I don't know. Nitro, yeah, he hit him and it almost was a delayed reaction. But I was happy with it. I didn't see a fireball. I saw meaty pieces of horse blowing around. And again, we don't know how many of those little jars they packed into them. But I was okay with it. I had a little more problem with Dolores and William getting away from the Gatling gun. That was a little more stretch for me. But the entire scene, it was action-packed. It was beautiful. And it made me question less the little problems.
I had a theory on the Gatling gun thing. So... Are you familiar with the DC character, the Flash?
Like the one who runs really quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Flash, now think about this. If the Flash were to go running that fast, what would happen to his clothes?
I don't know. I'm not a big Flash fan, so I'm assuming he has some kind of a polymer, some kind of special suit. I don't know, but then again, you're asking, how the hell did the Hulk always have shorts on?
Right. So the Flash has a thing called the Speed Force, and the Speed Force allows him to be protected. There's like an aura around his body that protects his suit from getting torn off. Much like Superman, his strength extends to parts of his uniform, and that's how like he keeps from being like, if he's really jacked up, parts of it can be tattered, but for the most part, when he flies out through the atmosphere and into the sun and stuff, his uniform isn't all torn up. So in that, I thought that when he scoops up Dolores and he has her close to him, she can't be hit because the way that Westworld is that they can't even get close to hitting him.
I totally agree with you. Dolores was acting like, she was protected by the fact that William was riding the horse. You're too close there. There's no way the munitions would know the difference if it was passing through a host or a human. So in that case, I think there's got to be some kind of a protective zone. Anytime that a host is within 2 or 3 feet of a human, that it's a protection. I think you're 100% correct with that.
Also, in addition, if you think about it, Dolores is supposed to lead him to something. So it might just be a part of the narrative where like she has to get past that point in order to get him to wherever else he's supposed to go. So, not to mention shooting a Gatling gun on a cart while it's being pulled by horses, very, very difficult.
But God, that Gatling gun, that reminds me, in college, I was making potato guns, the potato cannons.
Oh, yeah.
And I had found the designs for the Gatling potato gun. This has just rekindled my desire to build that. Now that I actually have some disposable income and the ability to do it, I almost want to make one.
Did you do the one, was it the hairspray with like the barbecue ignition button?
Yeah, well, what you did was you'd open up the back end, you'd spray it, and I had a flick starter. It was like a little wheel that used to light like lanterns. So you didn't even need a lighter. You just sprayed the inside through the cap on. And again, the delinquent in college that I was, we used to shoot them over the buildings across the quad. Those things had some kick.
I want to explain that Dick and I were in college prior to the wide availability of internet access. So this is the kind of shit you had to do.
Oh, it was very dark water. You couldn't find designs for this. This was a time where you had to be passed down knowledge. Much like the Jedi Masters. You couldn't just go look online. There's no fun in that.
Did we also have in this episode probably one of the hotter sex scenes? Now, first of all, for people who accuse HBO of being all tits and ass, I want to point out that William and Dolores, we didn't even see that, right? They weren't even, there was no nudity in that scene, right?
No, I like the fact that we see a powerful woman here just using the host as a sexual object. But it's, I think it's, you're kind of, she's a bit off. You don't just get off of him and you're having sex, and then you start pulling chips out of the community like snack bowl. I thought that was a little wrong.
I really liked it. I mean, here's the thing is, I think the character, the Hale character, I'm just not crazy about. It feels like the villains on Angel and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, very Joss Whedon villain vibe going on here. And I don't know what it is about the character that just doesn't sit well with me, but that was actually a really likable part. That's my people, right? Like that's kind of like where I am on the scale of sexuality. So I was like, oh yeah, just wide open, like, hey.
No, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't think she's typical at all. I think a lot of times she speaks her mind. I think she's played it fairly even-handed. Her dealings with Sizemore, the way she here is open with her sexuality, and the way she tells Teresa, I like you, not personally, but I like you in this role. I think she can clearly define it. And I think it's believable that she is, in order for, and again, we know that the entire business world, that there is a difference and genders are treated different completely unfairly. For a woman to be as in such a high position that she is at that age, she is driven. She's powerful, so everything she's doing, I think, is in line with her character. She doesn't pull punches. And if she wanted to get to the top of the corporate ladder, that's how she would have to be in real life. She can't be diplomatic and pleasant. So I think it's totally within the realm of her character. I have one other thing that I want to just kind of bring up here in an episode that had tons and tons and tons of information. First of all, I love we get the actual verbal command to kill someone, which is perhaps our guest has become weary. That is the verbal key for Bernard to kill Teresa. So I love that. We have violent delights. I almost want to make a t-shirt with perhaps our guest has become or has grown weary. But is there also now a possibility? We've seen that Dr. Ford has done everything he can do to protect himself in the park. He's manipulated and replaced employees. He's completely, the narrative now is obviously he's doing something that will further protect his legacy. Is there a possibility that Arnold is a myth? Arnold is his final line of defense, that he creates this story of a partner who was responsible for creating the host. Without Arnold, we don't know how it works. We don't know how everything is being done in the park. It further insulates Ford and gives him an extra layer of protection. If you have this Arnold mythology out there, you're less likely to come in and pull Ford out. And Ford is free to use this Arnold character to manipulate hosts like he did to Bernard, like he does to Dolores. It gives him a character to play God with, or actually play the devil version of himself and manipulate the entire park and everyone in it. Am I way off base? Is it possible?
I don't think you're off base at all. Dr. Ford comes out and says in the episode where Arnold is introduced, he says, when the legend becomes fact, you print the legend. He's giving us some tips there too. I mean, let's add it up here. Okay. So the evidence stacked here goes like this. There's a photograph that Ford shows Bernard. That photo is clearly, the man in the photo is the host that plays plays Ford's father, or actually his father, right? So the photo means nothing. And only Bernard has seen it. And Bernard, as we know, is a host. So he, hosts' perception of images can be greatly modified. So that's out. As Logan says, from a legal perspective, they haven't been able to pin anything to Arnold. There's nobody else seems to have ever seen Arnold or known about him. So all the evidence points to the fact that this guy never existed. Otherwise, there would be evidence to the contrary. So in that sense, that's just him existing is just as valid a theory as him not existing. And if anything, I believe your idea much more than I believe a downloaded consciousness or a strip of code or something like that. But rather that it is, as you said, it's a way to diversify the strength or appear to have a second half, a counterpart that is never there. I mean, what's the one thing you can never shut down is something that doesn't exist in the first place. So I love that idea.
God, I love. Have you? I was a big horror movie fan when I was growing up. Have you ever seen The Thing?
Oh yeah.
I love once the paranoia sets in, where everyone trapped in the station doesn't know who is real and who is the alien. Imagine that spreading through Delos and through the employees. If Bernard somehow comes out and they realize that he is a host, the paranoia and just the complete chaos that would break out within the ranks of the employees. Where no one knows who they've been working with. Is Felix a host? Sylvester would have to question it. Everyone would question their own reality, and no one would have a clear answer. That could lead to the ultimate catastrophe. But we see that we've always wondered, what is the catalyst for the incident? And we thought it would be one thing. But here we see it's multiple storylines that are converging to ultimately cause the incident. You have Teresa getting the woodcutter and those offline and actually out. You now see that Maeve seems to be breaking free on her own, due to the way that they're wiping them. So this is a perfect convergence of multiple factors that's going to lead to just one hell of a fireworks show, I think, in episode 10.
Yeah, I'm really geeked for these last three, and kind of sad to be seeing the show go. But man, for people who are complaining that it was moving too slowly, or that things weren't happening quickly enough, or that they're losing interest in the show, or all the people who are upset with me for criticizing the show, listen, I'm back on board, guys. This one was a gem. Super excited to see what happens next, and I'm really excited to hear what Raj has to say about all this. Roger, he plays the role of host a lot, moving us along, and doesn't get to actually give his opinions very often. So I think it'll be really kind of nice to have him kind of chew on this and come into it tomorrow and actually get to express some opinions on what's going on. So speaking of which, we will be recording the next podcast tomorrow, and that'll be the full hour-long version that you can pick up on Tuesday. You can get it through iTunes, SoundCloud, anywhere you can pick up a podcast. We're on YouTube as well. So go ahead and check us out there. Obviously, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we're all over the place. And if you have anything that you want to email into us, let us know. We're at hosts@shatontv.com. I'd love to hear your take on all of this. We've already been getting some feedback rolling in on Twitter, and we're going to dig through that. And also, just a reminder, what you email into us, we can get onto our blog at the Westworld Telegraph. That's shatontv.com. And we also might discuss it on the Telegraph that we record on Wednesday night for Thursday. Thanks again for joining us for this bite-sized, really quick Instacast on episode 7 of Westworld. And we look forward to being with you again in just 2 days' time.
Good night.